Assalamu alaikum, very warm welcome viewers. You are watching program Diplomatic Enclave from Channel 5 and I am your host Malik Manzoor Ahmed. Today it's immense pleasure for me that today I am joined Argentine Ambassador, His Excellency Mr. Ivan is with me, and as you know that we meet different ambassadors of different regions and countries and we exchange the views on bilateral, international and important matters. So today he is with me. He's a very senior diplomat and he served already in Pakistan here for 3 years, and he also served in Soviet Union, UK and other many countries. So he has a very vast experience. First of all, Excellency, I am very grateful to you for your precious time that you've given for us for this program. Tell us about your diplomatic career, that when you start your diplomatic career, and you have been in different countries of the world. So share your experience with our viewers.
Well, thank you, Mr. Malik, and I would like to say hello to all the audience of Channel 5 and Diplomatic Enclave, which is a very popular program which deals with the diplomatic community here in Pakistan, and so it's for me a privilege to join you in this in your work and your daily interest in these matters. My diplomatic career started many years ago. In 1985, I was part of the first group of diplomats who joined the service in Argentina after the return of democracy.
Okay.
I had been away from Argentina during the dictatorship until 1983, and in 1984 I started studying at the academy, and then in 1985 I graduated and started work in the ministry. I must say that I was very lucky because I served in very, not only interesting countries, but at interesting times. I was in Moscow when the negotiations on nuclear disarmament were taking place in 1989 and 90, in times of the perestroika, of Gorbachev, of the opening of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Berlin Wall. So I saw all this from the inside.
Many ups and downs you have seen.
Yes. And then after a little more than a year, I was called by our ministry to move to London to be part of the team that reopened the embassy of Argentina, the Argentine embassy in London, after 8 years of, almost 8 years of no diplomatic relations with the UK. So it was a very big challenge to start from scratch almost. I was involved with Parliament, the British Parliament. I was Parliament liaison officer, and I must say it was a very interesting time, trying to build up relations between parliamentarians in the UK and Argentina. Later on I served in Ireland, and that time it was the peace negotiation agreement in the north of Ireland.
Very historic moment.
A historic moment during the Blair premiership. I think it was one of the highlights of that premiership, if not the highlight. I followed everything from Dublin, so from the point of view of the Republic of Ireland, we have very close ties with Ireland. We have 350,000 descendants of Irish immigrants in Argentina. So Ireland is a country that is very close to my country. And later on I was posted to Pakistan in 2004. I came here without knowing exactly what I would find, well, apart from what you get in the papers, but as years have passed, I tend to believe less and less about what is being published in the papers, or at least take it with a pinch of salt, because very often, and particularly in developing countries, the papers only want to publish those pieces of news which are not, which are negative.
Majority negative.
Yes, and so, but my wife and I had an interest in South Asia. My wife, because mostly on the history of South Asia, and on my part, I had an interest in music of South Asia since I was 13, 14 years old. So we came here, and I really, we enjoyed our time here very much with our younger son. We traveled a lot in Pakistan. We went to Gilgit, Hunza, Skardu, Diosai Plains, Nanga Parbat Base Camp, Chitral, Shandur, visited valleys and glaciers in the north, went to southern Punjab, to Cholistan, Bawalpur.
So most part of the Pakistan
yes,
you have visited.
And Karachi, and went to Khyber Pass in the safari train. I don't know if you remember that. There was a steam train. I'm very fond of steam trains, and it was a fantastic experience. So we know quite a lot of places in Pakistan. We've traveled the countries. We learned to love the people of Pakistan, and our experience, we found the people very welcoming. My son was at the international school, but all of his friends were Pakistanis, and he learned to. I also had another son who came for a visit for 4 months, and both of them learned to do chapatis, and my son does fantastic curries, and garam masala as well, and my wife already knew how to prepare some South Asian food before coming here, and so we had a fantastic time there. When I was offered to come back as an ambassador, I didn't have to think it much. I didn't even need to consult my wife. I said yes, and so we're back here. It's a different, in a different condition. In one way, I'm very happy to be back and to be an ambassador. I mean, this is what you want to become when you join the service. So for me, it's the crowning of my own career. Yes, and on the other hand, as an ambassador, you have more restrictions, and you can't do the things I used to do when I was a DHM. You know, so in the traveling is a bit more restricted than it used to be, but we're both very pleased. We're both alone here because my son is now finishing university studies in Argentina. He keeps in touch with some Pakistani friends through Facebook, and we hope that he may be able to come to Pakistan, although he's now got a girlfriend, so that may be a bit difficult.
Yes. So, sir, Mr. Ambassador, as ambassador here, yes, what are your key priorities to enhance the relation between Pakistan and Argentina, especially in the context of trade and economic and other fields that both countries can enhance the cooperation? So, can you tell us briefly that what the initiative that you've taken as ambassador here to boost the relations?
Well, I think trade between Pakistan and Argentina has grown quite a lot under my predecessor's tenure. We used to export, as far as I know, something, if I don't remember wrongly, but around 2006 we were at around $60 million or $70 million. And in the last few years we have moved to, I think it was 2014, $280 million, then almost $400 million. That was a one-off, I think. We're back now to 250. Pakistan is oscillating between 50 and $70 million, depending on the years.
Okay.
So it's a bit unbalanced, but I think at least the main reason for the situation in the last years is that the economy of Argentina has contracted. We suffered, we avoided a major crisis, but we had negative growth last year, which means recession, speaking plainly.
Yes, sir.
And when you have recession, people stop buying things, and they only buy what is needed, meaning food.
Essential item.
Yeah. If you want to buy new sports equipment, you leave it for another year, you know. If you want to buy new clothes, new materials for doing some new clothes, you wait for another year. So that's, I think, one of the explanations. Another explanation, I think, is that, and this is quite amazing, I tell you an anecdote, but I think it's very important. My wife went in the holidays to our farm, which is in the middle of Argentina, far away from the capital. And there is a small town nearby, 115,000 inhabitants. And she has a tailor there. Mm-hmm. And she brought some Pakistani cloths for the tailor to do some, you know, I don't know, clothing for her. And she showed her the clothes. And the tailor looked at her and she said, "Oh, I have the same clothes, different color."
Same clothes?
Same, Pakistani.
Okay, okay.
And I thought, well, so this means that Pakistan is selling the cloth to Argentina, even not only to Buenos Aires, the capital, but also the interior, a relatively small town. But I asked myself, why isn't Pakistan selling the clothing? You know, you're selling the cloth, the material, but not the clothing. So I think there, and I have the feeling that the textile industry in Pakistan is losing against China and other countries in the competition for attracting, gaining markets for men's suits, women's clothing. You know, it seems that the textile industry is too focused on the type of clothing that is popular in Pakistan, but they haven't really developed the skills to produce clothing for Western women, for instance, or not only Western women, but
need to explore the market.
Yes, you have to develop new skills, new design capabilities. And this would add value to your export, because if you export only the material, it's
value added, you know.
You need value added. Right. Yeah. So when you look at the clothing you buy in Argentina, it's made in Argentina, but it's also made in China, in Indonesia, in India, in the Philippines, in Brazil, of course, but that's natural because Brazil is next door, so they have an advantage over other countries. But you don't find clothing from Pakistan, you know.
So, sir, do you satisfy with the existing trade volume between the two countries as the ambassador?
Sorry?
Do you satisfy with the existing trade volume?
There is a potential for growth. There is a potential for growth. I think Pakistan has a big potential for growth in the textile sector. I think the sports goods sector is
also very extremely important.
Yeah, but I don't think there is much room for growth because almost all footballs, rugby balls, and basketballs, volleyballs are made in Pakistan. In Argentina, you don't find, unless you go for very cheap footballs, which are produced in China, but which are not very good quality. But when you go into good quality articles, they're all made in Pakistan. So if you don't sell more, it's because the demand in Argentina is not increasing. Right?
Okay.
So I don't think all the hockey sticks are made in Pakistan. Absolutely all. There is no hockey stick that is not made in Pakistan. Right? So it's hockey in Argentina is growing because our men's hockey team won the gold medal at the last Olympics. And the women team has been gaining everything for the last 10, 12 years.
Constantly.
More, I think 15 or 20 years. They're one of the most powerful teams with Holland and maybe Australia, and sometimes Germany. So hockey is very popular. There will be a demand of hockey sticks maybe, but it will not be great, you know. It's already very popular in Argentina. So those surgical instruments which are produced in Sialkot are already sold to Argentina. Everything is, although sometimes it says made in the European Union or made in Germany, everybody knows it's made in Pakistan. And they only stamp made in Germany or...
Yes, made in Germany. Otherwise it's a very popular product of Pakistan.
Yes, it's very popular. So I think, and then there would be niches, I think, small niches. For instance, I don't understand why Pakistan has not made an effort to export basmati rice to to expensive restaurants in Buenos Aires and in the main cities of Argentina. I don't think there is a large market for basmati rice because Argentines don't eat much rice. And if they eat it, they eat only common rice. They don't have a taste. You know, this is something you have to educate people into.
Awareness is needed, you know.
But
so
in expensive restaurants, there you go, you cater for people who travel abroad. Argentines who travel abroad. And Argentines have traveled to South Asia. They have traveled to Asia. They know what basmati rice is. And the only basmati rice you can find in Argentina is Uncle Ben's, which is dreadful. You know? You have the best basmati rice in the world.
In the world, yes.
So you could export basmati rice to these restaurants and take advantage of that. And although it's not a big market, everything counts, you see. And I'm one of those who believes that even a small addition to your exports will count and will make the name of the trademark Pakistan better known. You know.
Exactly.
You have to sell the country as if it were a trademark.
Yeah,
and
very right.
You have to build the image of your country. And these things contribute to it. I don't think there is a market for mango because we're too far away. And it would be awfully expensive to export mangoes to Argentina.
It's expensive. So we have to take a short commercial break, and after that we will resume our conversation. Thank you. Welcome back, viewers. Excellency, as we know that your country has introduced a very latest technology in agriculture sector, and basically your country is an agriculture-based country. So, what types of cooperation or experience that Pakistan can get from your country to enhance the agri productions in many sectors? So, how do you explain in the cooperation in the field of agriculture between the two countries?
Well, I think Pakistan is facing a challenge in agriculture. You have to improve the productivity of the agricultural sector in Pakistan in order to feed a growing population. And at the moment, things are being sort of managed through subsidies, but in the long term, you have to try to have an agricultural sector that is less reliable on subsidies. And in order to do that, you have to improve your productivity. Now, there are some areas where we could help, particularly regarding three crops: maize, then soya, and peanuts. Also in wheat, although I'm not so knowledgeable about wheat production in Argentina. My feeling is that the kind of wheat we produce is not exactly the same as the one you produce. So we could help Pakistan through cooperation in the promotion of good practices in the agricultural sector in order to improve the way in which the soil is being used, and have encouraged rotation of crops, encourage no-till practices, meaning you don't plow the earth, you just pass with a sowing machine which has small discs and then creates breaks through the earth, not very deep, and then lets the seed fall there. And you don't, this prevents erosion, this allows for the leftovers of the last crop to get mixed with the earth, and then improves the quality of the earth. So these things we can share with Pakistan, and my ambition is to have a delegation of experts from the agricultural sector, both from experimental centers, like the one in Bari, for instance, which here in Punjab, near Chakwal,
yes,
which I plan to visit in the next few days, I hope, and farmers. So that slowly some practices, farming practices, and also practices regarding storage can be improved in Pakistan. You waste a lot in
storage capacity is not.
Yeah, the storage capacity is there is a high deficit of storage capacity. And I think once you have this set up, and after some time, you may be Argentines may learn that Pakistan is not so dangerous as the press states, and we maybe create the right environment for the creation of joint ventures in Pakistan, which is my ambition in the longer run.
That will be very beneficial for the both countries.
Yes, I don't think I may be able to see that because my term here may be 3 years. And then I have to go. But I want to start the process that may lead to this. I've been working on development issues in the past. I was head for development in the Foreign Ministry the last 5 years before coming to Pakistan. And so I know that development policies are long-term policies. And you have to promote them in the long term. You cannot expect results in the short term. So this is one of the reasons why politicians find it very difficult to deal with development, and only those politicians who have a view of the benefit of the country in the longer term are willing to invest in this. But I think it pays off, and in the long run, politicians have to learn that you have to invest in projects that maybe the results will be seen by another government, or maybe the government after the next government. And it is important that politicians acknowledge what the former government did. You know, I remember when the underground there were floodings in Buenos Aires, and the works for the floodings to stop the floodings in Buenos Aires was initiated by one government of the opposition. In fact, it's now in the opposition. And then followed another government, and they continued the work, and it was opened by a third government who was, when the things were started, in the opposition. The government that opened the works invited those who were in charge of the government in the past from the opposition to take part of the ceremony of opening of the drainage works.
It's a good initiative.
You know, and this is the way to work. You know,
this is the way forward, actually. You know.
Exactly. So you recognize what your current opposition did in the past, and you recognize that this is a work that goes beyond party politics. You know. And this is very important when you deal with development issues. You know, big drainage works, dams, you know.
And long-term impact of these initiatives actually
this is
for the prosperity of any country.
Exactly. This is something where when you open a new turbine, when you have to invite the people at the opening who started this, who may not be of your own party. But this creates a sense in which it makes it worthwhile for a government to engage itself in long-term projects, because they will know that in the future, even if they're not in government, their contribution will be acknowledged.
Excellency, now let's talk about the diplomatic and political bilateral relation between Argentina and Pakistan. As the ambassador, you want to boost the relation between the two countries, but can you define us that currently any high-level visit is expected or exchange of delegations on political and diplomatic front?
Well, we established relations in 1951, so 65. We celebrated last year 65 years of
very old
bilateral relations. We also we planned to establish relations in 1947, but then Qaidi Azam died, and this had to wait for another 3 years. But or 48, I think it was. We have had exchanges of high-ranked delegations, and in fact, President Musharraf went to Argentina, I think in December 2004. And we hope to have bilateral political consultations this year in Buenos Aires, and the Trade Joint Commission here in Pakistan.
Joint Ministerial Commission?
Yes, so we will have, we expect to have the Vice Minister for Foreign Trade of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs coming over here, and an additional Secretary of Pakistan going to for the political consultations in Argentina. There are issues, very important issues, we have common positions in, like the reform of the Security Council. I think your representative to the UN, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday, made very strong statements in this regard, and we have a common position with Pakistan regarding this. We also have to explore new venues for increased bilateral trade, cooperation. I am in encouraging our ministry to bring a delegation, as I said, of agricultural experts and farmers to Argentina. I think I will have to, hopefully, I wanted to do it this year, but I think it may be safer to leave it until March next year, because the big agro-industrial exhibition in Argentina takes place at the beginning of March.
Okay, many things are taking place.
Yes, and now it's taking place now, actually, in Argentina. And I think for Pakistani farmers, it would be interesting to go there. We already have a delegation that went to Argentina of the oil milling industry, about 25 businessmen who from Pakistan who went to Argentina between the 8th and the 12th. I think today's the 10th, right?
Yes, yes.
So they're now there. They're now in Argentina at the moment.
A businessman from Pakistan?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And do we have any MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, in economic and trade and some other, related?
We have MOUs. I'm one of those diplomats who doesn't think that MOUs by themselves are
is a tangible
asset. An MOU may have a symbolic meaning, but if it's not accompanied by actual deeds,
if it's not
actions,
implemented,
it's no use. I prefer promoting visits, having cooperation, actual projects of cooperation in the agricultural sector, joint ventures between. There was a joint venture established between an Argentine company, Bago, and a Pakistani pharmaceutical many years ago in Lahore, Ferozens. That joint venture produced great, I think, results in the sense that Ferozens was producing oncological medicines here in Pakistan that were much needed. Now we're trying to encourage another joint venture between another pharmaceutical, I will not give the name, two pharmaceuticals in Argentina, in order to also produce new medicines here in Pakistan with Argentine technology. Ferozens' contribution has been not only in the pharmaceutical sector, and it is one of the most, Usman Wahid, who is the CEO, has been recognized as one of the leading businessmen, young businessmen in Pakistan years ago. But they also have contributed to in the field of culture, and I think this book is a good show of this. I just wanted to show it to you, to the viewers. This is a book of photographs of Pakistan mountains,
yes,
the Golden Thrones, by an Argentine mountaineer and photographer, professional photographer, Tommy Heinrich. And this was published with the support of Ferozens and the Argentine pharmaceutical Bago.
Okay, very.
It's an example of joint venture that went into culture. This book was so successful that the Pakistan Foreign Ministry bought copies of this to have it distributed to their embassies abroad.
That's very good, yes.
So this is, I think, an example of what we can get together in the field of culture as well. And this is
I was about to ask, because when I seen your interest in music, in arts, in culture, and culture diplomacy is a very vital role and impact to boost the relation in the world in any country, So, can you tell us briefly that how you are promoting the cultural ties and promote arts and music between the two countries?
Well, we, as I said, I have a taste for Pakistani music. So we organized a concert last year of solely Pakistani music at the Marriott Hotel, which was a big success. We had about 250 people there. And so complete, all seats taken. And I think we didn't expect such a response. I think there is room for bigger events with Pakistani traditional music. We had Sufi music mainly, but also some ragas being played, and with including with an unconventional performer of ragas, a professor who was playing harmonium. Ragas in a harmonium. I had never listened to that, and I was very impressed by his performance. And I plan to do a similar thing this year with Pakistani classical music. And I hope to, we also brought last year an Argentine guitarist who performed here with some numbers being accompanied by a colleague from the Brazilian embassy who is a very good bandoneon player. Bandoneon is a very popular instrument being used in tango music. And we had an exhibition of paintings. So I plan to do some music again this year, and hopefully something connected with photography. These later in the year, and all these events I try to get the artist involved with Pakistani students of music and graphic arts, particularly in connection with the National College of the Arts in Lahore, where we have close connections, but not limited to that. So I think it's art and culture.
It's very important,
very important.
that actually you can enhance your friendship and your relations
Yeah.
by promoting arts and music and culture.
So and I think there you have a lot of work to do, because the arts are not only a source of better acquaintance with the cultures of other people, but the arts can be a business.
Yes.
Particularly music.
And Excellency, this Argentine park in Islamabad is a symbol of friendship between the two countries. This Argentina park in
Yes.
Islamabad. And our government has planned to expand this hospital. And your government, I think, has extended the cooperation also for the construction of this upgradation of this hospital. And you have also meeting with the Pakistani authorities regarding this. So, what is any tangible output of your negotiation or your?
Well, we don't have a negotiation. I tell you why. Because the park was really donated by the Pakistani government for some services political help we provided to Pakistan
At United Nations.
At the United Nations. And this was a donation, but the Argentine government does not own the park. The park is owned by the CDA. What was donated by the Pakistani government was the monument and the fact that it would be called Argentina Park. So we can only make suggestions to the CDA on how to use the park and try to help to preserve it. In fact, when we were here, when I was DHM with my wife, we planted some trees in the park.
Yes.
At that time, and now we also had an event last year to celebrate the 65 years. And thanks to the CDA, there was the CDA helped us to as you say, beautify the park a bit, so refurbish it a bit. I plan to do some cultural events, if possible, if I'm allowed to, if I get the NOC from the government, in the park this year, particularly for children, if possible. And I expect the CDA to preserve the park as much as possible. I would, to use part of the park as an extension of a hospital is something that we cannot oppose. There is a need for more beds in the hospital. I understand that the planning, the original plan for extension of the hospital was not approved because it wasn't making the right use of the space being granted to it. I hope the meters of the park, which are will be devoted to the hospital, are used as efficiently as possible. But we will want the park to leave enough room behind the monument so that the monument is not has some perspective. I understand, when I was there, there was a screen made of materials just right behind the monument. I wouldn't want to see the buildings go straight behind the monument. We need some space behind it, which is currently being occupied by a parking place. I think that space is needed if the park is going to remain of urban interest, because otherwise it will, it will see very ugly, I must say. So I'm in conversations. I hope to have another conversation with the Lord Mayor in the context of doing more events in the park, and I hope to make sure that the Argentina Park remains a place where people can go, enjoy themselves.
They can enjoy
rest,
with the family and kids and
go with the
cultural
children,
events and
yes,
many others.
have cultural events, yes. It's important.
Excellency, thank you very much for your precious time, and we have a very fruitful discussions on bilateral relation between the two countries. So I'm grateful to you for your time, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Malik, and thank you all the viewers for your attention.
With these words, viewers, it's time to finish the programs. And Excellency, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
And this is the end of program. Viewers, thank you very much.